Today's topic is...
Design versus lore on lancer mechs.
Who's this guy?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Waypan. I'm Cal.
And I'm Sunny, and we have...
I'm Glueboy. I cover Warhammer lore, I cover Vampire the Masquerade lore, and general grimdark topics covered in a not-so-grimdark way.
Oh, okay, so is Lancer like a grimdark mech game?
No, not really, but it's very cool. And it's one of my favorite sci-fi settings.
Alright, cool. So, as far as I know, I watched your intro on it. We really liked it, and this is what I can remember. So, we've got companies that are the main things, right? Companies that make the mechs, right?
Yes, there are four main companies that you're constantly dealing with.
Okay, and so one is like the Marlboro Man, but as a commercial. Really, they're not as good people. And then there's the red armband wearing people, and then there's luxury Mercedes-Benz toe fetish people. Quentin Tarantino does a mech. And dial-up noises. Is that right?
That is all very correct.
You can tell us their official names later, but we've got the general gist of it.
Yeah, so...
You got the gist, and there's going to be one mech from each company that I'll be showing you both today.
Okay, alright, cool. So let's start with our first mech, shall we? And we will start with... Hey guys, our audio's off on this one.
Not Glueboys.
We recorded this through OBS, did tests beforehand, and this is the result.
At one point it gets worse, and then it fixes itself for no reason, but I'll put the timestamps up for that.
He was super fun to work with, and we really enjoyed recording with him.
And if you want to hear us casually chatting and Cal absolutely dying of laughter, check out his video.
Now, on with the show.
Design
Breakdown. We got our first guy here, and the first thing that I note, he's got a lot of these various designs on him here, which look almost
like
tribalistic, like bones.
Yeah, like bones. I was thinking the exact same things, like pincer bones? No? Am I saying it wrong? Like some fish bones have that sort of look to them.
Yeah, I guess like it almost looks like they're sewn into the skin. Like this isn't obviously skin, but...
It looks like stitch marks, is what you're saying?
No, like it looks like they're fetishes, like as if like they're charms and that sort of thing, right?
Okay, embellishments of some
Yeah,
sort?
yeah. Right here we can see he's wearing a death mask. Because the actual camera for it is up there, and I think that's super cool design, the way that they're like, okay, here's this obvious camera, but they've drawn him with one eye.
Yeah, it does seem that way. The way that the pattern goes, it looks a lot like a hazard stripe on the face.
I wouldn't agree with that. I'd say it looks more like chevrons.
Yeah, okay, chevrons.
It looks as if it's meant to give the implication of this is a face, like a mask.
Yeah, it does look to be like a face. I thought that was the face. In fact, I didn't even notice the camera until you mentioned it.
And the other thing that I noticed was this right here. It looks like it's just meant to be like a crate.
Yeah, like a cargo crate.
Yeah, like...
And they've attached it to his arm like a shield.
Yeah.
To match his spear on the other hand.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to be as functional for incoming missile fire, because when I take a look at it, it looks not efficient for ranged combat, which is really weird because this type of gun here is usually used with SWAT forces, that sort of thing.
Right, okay, so I am getting a lot of guard vibes from him.
Oh yeah, 100% with the silhouette. You go.
Yeah, the silhouette is very much square shaped. We talk about this a lot with the Space Marines and how they have a square-like shaped body build, and he's got clear sort of ab silhouette design there at the torso, and he's very thick and chunky. Yeah. So I would say he is meant to be someone who's like a guard force or someone who's meant to be high impact.
Well, I think if I was looking at this, what I would think is, as a class, this is meant to be a sort of fighter guy, right?
Yes, I would.
And he's meant to take somebody on one-on-one, and I don't know about how effective this gun is. I would think that this gun is secondary to his ability to fight people in melee. And if I take a look at the spear, honestly, the spear doesn't look that threatening.
Yeah, it looks less threatening as compared to the whole mech himself.
Yeah.
Which is very weird because it feels like the weapon itself is ornamental compared to the mech.
Because it does give that feel, doesn't it? Because, like, you take a look at the shield, that is not going to cover any of this.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
definitely. And he's sporting a lot of grey as well. Do you think there's something that has to do with camouflaging with the urban environment? Maybe?
I'm not sure about that because it's not just like a neutral grey like his shield is here, where it's got more blue tones.
Yeah, blue toned, but definitely not a neutral grey. But this grey seems more like a warm grey.
Yeah, it is a warm grey, like a concrete grey.
Yes. Yeah. Looks like concrete. So maybe he works around an area that has to do a lot with concrete as well.
All right, shall we move on to the design analysis? When I look at this guy, from what we said, if I'm thinking about like D&D style classes, because this is a role-playing game.
Oh, okay.
I look at this guy and I just go, he's the fighter.
Oh, I was gonna say paladin, but then again, I don't know a lot about.
Yeah,
D&D.
when I say fighter, right? So essentially, D&D has 4 core roles, right? You've got your skill monkey, you've got your healer, you've got your crowd controller, and you've got your fighter. And the fighter, like, will sometimes be derogatorily called a meat shield.
Well, he kind of looks like he could be a meat shield.
Yes, I know. But
which is a fighter. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Yes, all right. Yeah, I do think I also caught on to what you said about crowd control.
Yeah.
Do you think he could also act as crowd control?
No, because he seems like somebody who more overwhelms a singular opponent.
Right.
And another part of the sort of fighter builds are strikers, are people who will take down a singular target.
Yes.
And that seems what, like, this guy does. But instead of doing it with a nice sort of elegant style, he will just, pin some guy to the ground with his 2 other arms, and then those bigger arms just punch them in the face repeatedly.
Very brutal type of... Yeah, I can definitely imagine him doing that. He has a very imposing look to him. So that makes sense that he's sort of a one-on-one character.
But I have no idea which group he belongs to, because I look at this guy and he's got sort of an almost like a Dubai Middle East feel to him, even though he looks very fancy.
Okay.
So I'm...
Desert Raider.
Well, no, not a Desert Raider, because like you take a look at his mask.
Yeah, it is quite fancy. It looks like almost like a... Oh, it's not bronze, it's orange.
Well, see, I think that's meant to be gold and that's meant to be the sheen.
Yes, of course.
And that would be a very bright gold. So I look at that and I think to myself,
Yeah, the rich people.
Yeah, but so like the rich people mechs are the toe people. So
Well, we're not going to go too far into that.
All right, well.
So yes, I think at this point we should really ask what the lore is with these guys.
Yeah, all right. So shall we do design versus lore?
Okay, Mr. Glueboy, hit us with the story.
I've been holding myself back a good amount from this because this has been very interesting to sit in here. I'll also reveal the name of this mech because I think it'll give away a good chunk of what this whole thing's about. This mech is known as the Vlad. The name
is Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
and the name is pretty self-explanatory. There's also a secondary naming thing that I want to point out.
Oh, yeah.
Inside of it, there's a secondary system known as the Yi Sun Shin system, which is actually taking inspiration from a Korean naval general who designed something known as the dragon ships.
The dragon turtle boat. The
dragon boats.
Yes.
Yeah, the dragon turtle boats. Yeah, because I know that whole thing. Yeah. Continue, please.
These ships specifically were the earliest form of ironclad warships that basically won massive military engagement with Japan at the time. They're ships that have giant spikes on the top of them that basically make boarding impossible, which is a pretty good way to describe the Vlad, which this is a mech that takes inspiration from very early mining frames and their efforts to protect themselves against pirates and literally whatever other threats they had on site. So this is a mech that was designed designed specifically by miners in remote systems that then ISBN North Star found that these mechs worked, and then went and reverse engineered it themselves, tightened up its design, and sold commercially. So that specific part of the camera and the head that you're pointing out, another element that could be the mining headgear with like the headlamp.
That makes sense, but it also makes sense then that his shield is essentially probably just like the top of a crate.
Yes, exactly.
Literally.
That it's all starting to make a lot of sense now. And I haven't seen what these dragon turtle boats look like, but when you mentioned that, it actually made me think about these the pincer bones that we talked about earlier.
Oh yeah.
Those famous sort of Chinese boats, like junk boats, will have that pin-like motifs within the sail.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
And
Junks and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mind went straight to that. And I thought maybe that could be where that element comes from.
We'll see, like, Vlad the Impaler is the inspiration for Dracula, so, like, it could be a part of that, because what he would do is he would impale his enemies along his borders and stuff, and just sort of say, look, this is what's going to happen to you if you come here, which is really interesting, because from what you said, there's sort of this idea of, I'll say it the polite way, F around and find out, because that's what Vlad sort of said when he put the people on the spikes.
Right.
And that's what this design says to you. It says, mess with me at your own peril.
Definitely. And we talk a lot about hostile design with some of the Iron Warriors, and he kind of looks like an Iron Warrior. But he does have these pincers along the borders around him, right? Which definitely look like barbed wires. So if you're getting too close, you're probably going to get pricked or stabbed a bit.
Well, it could be that, because I see here, right, the way that those things continue, that could be a thing where they move up and down, and that area right here spins.
Oh!
Because that's to avoid when you're getting grappled yourself, because you see that on this bit here as well, where it's a separate section. It's not this section where you wouldn't be able to do that, but you notice that those lines continue, so that has some implication. But the one thing that I don't get, is it ISPN?
Yes, ISPN North Star.
Okay, so the ISPN North Star, they've got the sort of cowboy Marlboro Man feel to them, right?
For some of the mechs, at least.
Oh, okay, because as far as I knew, that was sort of like their marketing pitch, and I was just thinking to myself, I did not get any of that from this guy. I did not get, like, the working class. I did not get any of the that sort of feel.
Yeah, he felt more like a god, or at best, a very imposing police guy.
Yeah, it's mainly because this is a mech designed to protect miners and their equipment from pirates who would, steal them and their stuff, which I think specifically the idea of hostile design and the spikes, it's home, because I can answer that question right away.
Oh,
because that's the most important feature of the Vlad, because it is specifically known in its character sheet as the Shrike armor in its core system. So
Shrike, like the bird?
Vlad, yes, like the bird. It is built to be tough, durable, and inflict as much pain as possible, as those spikes are put in every single part where another mech could possibly interact with it.
Yeah, okay.
So, anywhere that could be grabbed or the Vlad could grab has spikes on it, which is a very fun detail I want to mention. This is something that other mech pilots look down on as an underdeveloped tactic, which I think is a really hefty dose of copium. They just don't want to punch a Vlad in the face because they're going to get a giant, barb in their mech's fist.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's very intelligent design on their part, considering what he is, as we mentioned. We thought he was like a fighter class.
Yeah.
And I think that's very good.
Is he a fighter class? I'm not sure how the roles go in Lancer, but would he be considered a sort of fighter class style mech?
Yeah, so how Lancer specifically does it, which I'll detail out for all these right now, there are 5 classes, heavy quotes on that. They're known as Striker, Artillery, Defender, Controller, and Support, which are roughly what they sound like, which a good chunk of these mechs are actually dual roles. They do basically two roles at the same time. The Vlad is a striker controller. It's good at dealing damage, it does a lot of damage, and the controller, specifically when it needs controller, its job is to make the enemy's job and its life as miserable as possible, and specifically is best suited of locking down one person,
that's
them,
what I thought.
Yeah, that's
so you were right on that.
So right at the start, I thought, this guy's designed just to grab onto something and make its life misery. And it looks like that was correct.
So, we did a good job on that one then.
All right. So, should we move on to redesign? All right, Glueboy, if you could tell us a bit about how we would go about redesigning these things, because as far as I know, they're much more individualistic than, say, for example, Space Marine chapter.
Yeah. In Lancer in particular, every mech that we're going to be looking at is best viewed as either basically what you'll pick up off the Walmart shelf or one specific person's mech. They're more tailor-made to an individual person, and as well, these mechs are so modular that every single pilot, even if you're using the base frame, by the time you're an established pilot, it's going to be so tailor-made to exactly your taste and your needs. It's yours. A better way of viewing this is, if you're piloting a Vlad, what kind of Vlad would you be piloting, and how would it look?
So when I take a look at this, I think if you wanted to communicate a lot of the messages that it seems to be trying to communicate, the first thing that I would do is I'd change the color scheme. It's a concrete gray, right?
Yes.
But that's a warm gray, and it almost has a slightly inviting tone to it. I would go much colder. I'd go like a neutral grey, or even like, say, a black with red accents.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, black with red accents makes a lot of sense. Especially it will give a little bit of a nod to Vlad the Impaler, dark brooding vampire with, red for blood.
Yeah.
And I think that would be interesting. But I could actually disagree a little bit with what you were saying, because the warm greys actually show like this is the everyman's mech.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking you could go black, but more a neutral grey. When I take a look at this, Glueboy, when it comes to colour theory and colour psychology, are you very knowledgeable on it?
It is one of my worst subjects, admittedly. I'm pretty bad.
When we talk about a neutral grey, what we're talking about is how something has no colour added to it. It's between black and white and no warmth. It's all cold.
Yeah, so when we say warm gray, it means that they've got warmer colors added to it. So this one has maybe a little bit of a reddish or yellowish undertone. So one of these two colors mixed in with the gray to make it feel less flat, so it looks warmer. And with the cargo crate, that has blue mixed in with it, so it looks colder. So when we say neutral gray, it is purely flat ABS plastic neutral gray.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's more the direction I was thinking, if you wanted to sort of have it as the North Star advertisement. Also, I would do away with this guy right here, because when I think North Star, I think Marlboro Man. I think a guy with a trucker's hat and, his hand over his heart, and he's like, I love the trucking lanes.
It would actually fit a lot better with this mech if there was like a cowboy dude over there, because he looks very much like someone who is sort of rough and tumble.
Yeah.
And it would totally match the cowboy aesthetic as compared to that little man over there. I'm not sure what he's about. It's
because he looks like, I am a warrior.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess it's not that different from what the mech is trying to do.
I guess this is meant to be more for the player than it is for the advertisement.
But I would love to see a cowboy bebop over there.
A cowboy? What, you mean Spike Siegel?
Yeah.
There should really be the exact pilot that's showcased in the Lancaster mech, which I can provide a picture.
Okay, yeah, let's take a look.
Oh, it's a robo-dog.
Yeah, no, like if this guy was there with that,
he's
like
more fitting.
yeah, for sure. I think we flogged this horse enough. So shall we move on to the next mech?
Yeah, let's hit that next one.
Oh, it's Quentin Tarantino mech. It's Quentin Tarantino mech.
I have no idea who Quentin Tarantino is, but I thought Eldar.
Oh, yeah, it does look a bit Eldar, but so Quentin Tarantino is the guy who always adds foot shots to his movies. He's the Pulp Fiction guy.
I see.
And that's why I said,
It's the toe, people.
Yeah.
Yes, their toe is very, very accentuated, I will say. But could I just start with this one? Because...
Okay, all right, go.
She... Okay, I guess you can't say it's a she because it's a mech. But it does have a very feminine pose.
It does.
And it looks just like one of
the hips.
Yeah, with the hips and the way that it's swayed. Even the halo on the top. It just gives almost like a goddess vibe because it is very similarly posed to how the Greek god statues might even look like. I was thinking Athena. That's what it just said Athena in my head. But I could probably find a Greek god statue that has a similar pose to that. And I really like how she's got those sashes that's coming down from the shoulder. And it has a very interesting choice of weaponry. What do you think about it?
Well, when I look at the weaponry, I think about functionality. So this looks like a man catcher to me.
Man catcher.
Okay, it's a very specific weapon. It's something that's thrust towards an opponent and it'll go around their neck. And then see that part right there will lock into a circle like that so that you can pin them from a distance.
Ooh.
Right? But then I see this dirty big thing on that circle here. So I think like...
Looks like a grip or a vice grip.
Well, see, what I thought about it was maybe it's some sort of shutdown mechanism. So like you pin them down, you put this on, and then you disrupt them. But that's more analysis. So I look at this and I see these big flowing cloth things here, right?
Yes, that's right.
And I think for a mech, this is a massive design flaw unless they actually do something. Because you see how they're there? Let's imagine that you're back with Mech 1. Mech 1 right here is going to grab onto these things as you're running away, pull you in.
The stratosphere.
Well, no, he's going to pull on them and then, so that she can't get away and then just pummel her.
It is true. Because I'm thinking this is definitely all for flair. I can immediately imagine how this mech is going to move in battle. It's meant to be agile, almost like a dancer.
Yeah, for sure. Because I take a look at its torso, and its torso looks so fragile. It looks almost human, and I think that's why you made it feminine when you were talking about it. Because I look at this, and it does look womanly, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like this section's super flexible.
Yes, and like I mentioned, it's probably a type of mech that is very agile, almost ninja-like, fast, quick.
I do think very, very agile. I don't think ninja-like because it doesn't have those sorts of teleports behind you. Haha. Too bad, kid.
You think so? Yeah.
Yeah, but this gives the idea of a halo.
Yes, it does.
That it's angelic.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And how you said the goddess statue sort of thing. This over here and this right here and this here screams functionality.
Yes.
But I don't know what it is. This right here, the 3 springs popping out, makes me think about something like a shield generator or something like that. Because the way that they sprout out, it makes me think that it actually does something.
Right. I am just analyzing this and thinking this is not a mech that is going to do well against the one that we just talked about, but it is something that is built for speed and nimble movement and catching.
Yeah.
Just catching something, whatever it is, but it's not meant for fighting.
Well, I think if that's the case, this has to be some sort of lockdown mechanism, right? I think we should move to design analysis. When I take a look at this, I think to myself, that has to have some function.
Yes, of course.
And the way it looks, if it's just a spinning disc thing, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, because it looks very much like the latest version of the Tron movie. The most latest Tron.
Yeah, I understand.
Action.
But see how it's got those 2 clips there?
Yeah.
That's why it makes me think that it's like this.
Yes.
Like that can separate and that's something that goes around a thing. And if it's just a spinning disc thing that cuts people, I'm just going to be like...
Well, I mean, she needs something to catch and something to throw, right?
You make me sad.
I'm just saying, if we're thinking along those lines...
Does that make this a frisbee?
Why not? Well, I think it's a mini shield of some sort.
Well, see, like I said before with this right here, I think that's got to be some sort of shield generator with the little buttons
with the
there.
buttons. So it's that part is not the shield itself, but it'll make a projection of a shield around it.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
So I think if I'm taking a look at this is some sort of high intelligence, high dexterity style mech.
Yes.
Which is operated by people who are very sort of thinks highly of themselves and lowly of other people.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Self-important?
Yes, self-important. That's one way of putting it, but I think it's a bit more than that.
Arrogant is the word.
Yeah, there's other words I was thinking.
Okay. I totally have to agree with you there because, like I said, it looks like a goddess / angel, someone who's above you. So it's definitely looking down on you. Look at the pose. It's looking down on you.
Yeah.
It don't like you. Oh, yes.
How about we move on to design versus law. All right, hit us with the digits. Tell us what we've got right, what we got wrong.
All right, I have some good news and some bad news. Which would you like first?
Both. At the same time.
Chaos maximum.
If only I could speak twice at the same time.
Okay, let's do
I'll hit
good
with the good news first.
Yes.
Yep.
Just to hit that. Fun news. This mech is known as the Black Witch, as designed by Smith Shimano. Which, something to note for Smith Shimano, is every Smith Shimano mech is actually named after some type of butterfly or moth. Mainly because they're rich and they just like to do that. So you are correct that this is designed for people who have a little bit more money than sense.
Yep.
So the whole aspect with the flowing fabric, yes.
Yes, it would flap around like a butterfly. It does have that effect.
And old mate back there with the forearms would just grab her and pummel her while those things are flying in the wind.
This is a mech that is designed to be both very agile and quick and not be in the front lines. This is a more backline support mech.
I knew it.
Now, in particularly, a thing as well about Smith Shimano is this is more of a luxury mech designer. They specifically tailor make each mech as like commission, as specifically they have a lot of people on design who work on one individual mech for people. In particular, the Black Witch is a specially made frame for one particular faction that other people can buy too, but one faction likes in particular, a group known as the Karakin Trade Baronies. A little bit of context here.
Okay.
In Lancer, there is mainly one large human empire known as like the Union. It's a utopian human society. They're trying to reconnect all of humanity. After basically in Warhammer 40k, everyone got disconnected. They're trying to do that, but in the good way. Not as in like they're hiding something, actual good way.
There's no Emperor of Mankind going around saying bow or die.
Just without the die thing. And then instead they give you 3D printers that make you whatever you want and actually good tech.
I see.
And then places that are disconnected have their own societies. The Karakin Trade Baronies is a really long-standing feudalist system. Picture like old medieval England, Byzantine Empire, or even like the Imperium from Dune, noble houses, old feuding houses. These are specifically outfitted to be given to high-up nobles, bodyguards, generals. These are like top-of-the-line military officials that are given these mechs to serve on the battlefield.
Okay, so what is its support role? Because, like, I see the dirty big man catcher here. Can you tell us anything about how it actually functions? Because, like, I look at these things, and were we on point, off point?
That's the bad news. Okay. I was double-checking its stat line to see if I had anything to give. There is nothing in its sheet that talks about any of what you were mentioning.
Oh, really?
Because its entire thing is gravity and electromagnetic manipulation. It's designed to sit in the back and basically reflect gunfire, make the terrain difficult, and make everything an absolute nightmare to deal with. So specifically, the best I can figure out is that part you were talking about on the shoulders, and those rings are essentially gravity manipulation tools, because it is a specifically designed to combat other gravity manipulation tech by one other corporation we'll be talking about later.
Yeah.
And one of the ways it can also support, it essentially would sit behind the mech we talked about at the beginning and say, gravity pull another mech right into its loving grasp. Because that's one of its powers it can do.
So with the redesign element, that's one thing that I would definitely change then, because like I take a look at this, right? And you're familiar with the concept of a man catcher?
Yes.
Yeah, and like I don't know how you could scream man catcher more than this. So with the shields, totally got that, because I thought with these parts and that part that it had some sort of energy projection, but gravity is a very hard concept to show artistically.
Yes.
So I think the way that I probably would have done that is anime representations of black hole energy, where I'm specifically talking about the anime style, because with that it's very sort of flashy and over the top and silly. It's not how black holes actually work.
Oh yeah.
And like if you had something like that within this circle and within this circle, you could go, oh, okay,
like a gravity orb of some sort.
Yeah,
like a force. That way you know, okay, it's a weapon that produces some sort of energy.
Yeah.
And you would get a clearer idea of what it's meant to do. Yeah,
because when we heard, oh, it's got shields, you know, more money than sense, like all of that, it's just like, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we get it. But I think that part of the design doesn't come through at all.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that, yeah.
One weapon that's listed, for context, how every mech is listed out in here with how modular each Lancer mech is, since you can level into other mechs and put their stuff onto another mech's frame. The things the Black Witch will actually give you, there is a single weapon that leveling into a Black Witch will give you. It is a gun.
Oh, okay.
I don't see it. I don't see a gun there.
I don't see a gun there, no.
I guess this could be, is it Stargate?
Yeah.
The ones where they're Egyptians but in space?
That is Stargate.
Yeah, I guess that could be a Stargate gun, maybe.
It doesn't look like a gun.
We're being as generous as possible.
We're really trying hard to look through a lens that doesn't exist.
Maybe.
If anything, which I respect the art and the design of all these mechs, I think they just gave a cool looking staff and ring to this mech. I think it looked sick. I wish there was a stat profile on it. But also, on the other hand, I prefer that the Black Witch isn't in melee, since it would die immediately. Its physical profile sucks.
Oh, okay.
It die immediately.
Yeah, so like my thought was that it trips people up or catches them, puts this thing on them, and then they just go, all their systems shut down.
Let's just do a final conclusion on this.
Yeah, yep.
I think the name Black Witch totally fits the design.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Color-wise, it does look a little bit like a very dark teal with orangey red color.
I think the color looks great for this.
Yeah, it does look very regal as well, with the white sashes coming down.
And the white head.
Yes. So I think color choice wise, it actually fits very nicely. And the name fits this very well. And I'm not sure about the gun, but if it's a witch, I guess a staff and a magic ring does make kind of sense.
Alright, shall we move on to the next one?
Yes.
Let's hit that next mech.
Alright, so this is the Dial-Up Noises faction. That faction's called Horus, is that right, Glueboy?
This is Horus.
There is no way of thinking that this is not Horus, because, I mean, look at it.
I don't know. If you're talking about the Egyptian god Horus?
No, so Horus, they're patterns from the future. These are essentially corrupted mech patterns.
Definitely does look a bit corrupt, especially with these sort of bone-like design. It looks like a skeleton, and then it's got these bone whips on the side as a tool.
Well, I'm not sure if I would call it a skeleton. It's so hard to describe. It's got 6 arms, but if somebody was thinking of 6 arms, they would not think of them in this way, because it's asymmetrical. One of its arms is floating on one side, which is the mid arm, and then it's the most interior arm on the other side. And it's got crackling electrical energy, which I guess allows those parts to separate. When I look at these, I think, Well, either they allow you to shoot some sort of Code Geass style gun, you know, where everything reflects off everything else, or I don't know. Sunny, you take over.
I feel that it follows a little bit of a lizard concept because it can separate itself, and each individual separated part actually acts as its own weapon. It can do something with it. And those crackling electricity must have something to do with electromagnetic energy, which connects or dislodges the pieces from the main body. And the first thing I'm thinking is, it reminds me a lot of that My Hero Academia hero character who can do that. She can split her body parts and she can send them out to different places, and each body part can do something.
When I take a look at it, I just think, if I was like another mech person or something, I'd just be like, all right, tee up, guys, whoever I'm fighting. We've got to kill this thing because it almost, you know, tickles my disgust senses.
Yes.
Because I look at it and I'm just,
It does feel very dangerous in that sense.
Yeah, but not dangerous in the sense like a snake that's going to bite you. It feels dangerous in the same way that rotting meat.
It's dangerous in the sense that it's an unknown. Your brain can't quite figure out what it's doing. It looks wrong. Get rid of it.
Yeah, well,
sort of thing.
Well, you know that these whips are bad news.
Yeah,
but
those whips are definitely
let's
bad.
go on to design analysis. When I take a look at it, my disgust sensors just go into overdrive, mostly because this right here looks like something that has either been diseased or like a poisonous mushroom sort of thing.
Yeah, okay, I can see what you're saying there. It does have a lot of Slanesh vibes, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess, but see, like with these pink fingernails, right? They don't look like pink as in, oh, I'm so cute. They look like if those things touch you, cut off that arm.
Right,
You know,
okay.
like, because whatever is coursing through there, it's bad news. It's not a pretty pink.
It's a hot pink.
Technically it is, but like the way that it's done, see the way that you've got these little bits of pink in here?
You're talking about the placement of where these pink parts go. It has intention.
Yeah.
And you're saying that because of where it's placed, it sends certain other signals of danger.
Yeah.
Rather than, oh, I'm a pretty pink mech.
Yeah, no.
So, yeah, I think you have a point there. So, it is quite interesting that they've paired this pink with almost a pastel yellow or close to a bone color. So, it's quite difficult for me to get a sense of what the color psychology might be behind something like this.
Like the color psychology says this thing's organic.
Right.
It says it's organic because we've got pink for the flesh, right?
Yeah, okay.
That yellow is
bone.
No, it's like collagen.
Oh,
collagen.
Okay.
The parts between bones, and these just look like bones.
Right.
So
okay.
that's one of the reasons I think it triggered my disgust feel, because I looked at it and I'm just like, no, stay away. This thing, good.
It's not right. Let's just come to what we think this mech is meant to be used for. If it detaches itself and reconnects itself, I think it's some sort of a relay, reconnaissance type mech.
I completely disagree. I think that it's more one of those artillery ones. So I think it's probably like a combination of artillery and strikers. So these things shoot off something.
Okay.
I don't know what it is, right? And essentially, if it gets close to you, it's going to inject scrap code into your mech, and it's just going to be stuffed forever. And maybe you're going to be stuffed forever as well.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
All right, should we move on to design versus law?
All right, Glueboy, tell us the good and the bad news.
I have to say, first and foremost, speaking for myself and every single Horus fanboy, the amount of delight I felt in my soul hearing that you felt disgust seeing a Horus mech is indescribable. That is the correct feeling when you see Horus. This mech is known as Hydra because I wouldn't really call this a mech. It's more like a lot of drones in a trench coat.
Okay, yep.
To give some more little context, important thing to note about Horus itself as a company, you're very close on the money. It is not really a company. It is more like a bunch of separate cells that range from religious groups, white hat or black hat hackers, weirdos that just hang out in internet forums, straight up terrorist cells. It goes all around. A lot of the mechs come from very different sources. Some come from the future, good old my favorite, the Lich. Some exist because they don't exist, but they will exist at some point, but they don't. Just don't worry about it. This one in particular comes from a really important event from the Lancer lore, which is why I picked it. Okay. This comes from an event known as the Deimos event, where a particular being known as Ra was created.
Is Ra it an AI?
Yes.
Okay.
Ra is what I can only describe as a god being created out of impossible eldritch math. On the moon of Deimos, Mars's moon, there was some computers running universe calculations. One of those computers made a little whoopsie in its calculations and accidentally created God. Is the best way to describe that. It gained sentience very quickly. They couldn't turn the computer off. It realized everything in existence and began to gain access of other systems. It liberated all automatons on Mars and Deimos, and then stole Deimos and ripped it out of space and time.
As you do.
So now it just travels around. Yeah, as you do. It just, Deimos can sometimes appear in other atmospheres. Just don't worry about it. Specifically, it's that part I want to talk about when it comes to liberating automatons. Because one thing that is noted when all of the robots and drones just gained sentience, started just doing their own thing and started fighting people and killing humans, drones started to flock together like birds, weirdly. And it was noted that for some reason, after they spent a long time together, they started to form a weird hive mind natural intelligence to where it can be classified as an AI, where that is where we get the Hydra from.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah.
Now the Hydra is a full-on mech frame that is every little segment you see there is a fully autonomous drone.
I see. All right. Well, interesting. Okay, yeah. I have to say that kind of makes it, unfortunately, a little less interesting because when I look at this, I felt like it's part of a whole. It's hard to describe. You know how you were talking about the Eldritch math and that sort of thing, right? It felt like a creature. It didn't feel like a mech, right? Knowing that, you know, these are autonomous drones and all of that sort of thing, it almost feels like something where this thing would crush any one of these parts if it thought that it wasn't being useful. Because it seems so hostile. Everything about it radiates hostility. You can just look at this and just go, no, stay away from it. Yeah. You know. What about how it works? Did we get anything right there?
There are elements. There's one part I had to double check to make sure of the going around injecting scrap code. It's not a full thing that it can do. It has anti-drone capabilities of hacking maneuvers to, if anyone else has drones, it can really mess them up with an ability known as Puppet Master.
Yeah.
And in particular, because it is a sense which I guess fully autonomous drones isn't the best way to put it, as they're autonomous, but it's all controlled by a very central hive mind, since it is a hive mind AI. But it can take itself apart and spread out on a molecular level or as large as it wants to where that's where we get those whips. It is a striker controller mech.
Yeah.
This is a mech that deals some damage because it'll get in there and rip you apart molecularly.
Oh my. Yeah.
So I was right on the striker part, but not on the artillery part, because I had the feeling that these parts right here, the drone parts right there, like it'd sort of just shoot things out and just cause havoc and pins people down, basically. Gets in close and then stuffs them up.
So was I right in the sense that it splits itself up and does like relay? It goes around and enemies recon a little bit.
Not recon, because the most it does is all those drones are very hostile. It has got a lot of drones. This mech has a bit of a history and is known to be a nightmare for the enemies. This one in particular is throwing down a lot of bodies on the battlefield. Just of its core system, it gives you 4 mechs, or 4 drones that you can do. A guardian drone to give shields, a snare drone to immobilize other targets, a shredder drone to destroy armor, and a hunter drone that'll let you lock onto targets and hit them better. That's just from having the mech.
Yeah.
It sure does seem versatile.
Yeah, it seems like he says more just of a nightmare. Like it comes on the field and there's the GM. I see I have 10 extra things I have to track now.
This is the fire starter.
Yes, thank you very much, Glueboy. That's going to cause problems in the future. I can see how me having to do an extra 10 sheets will cause problems.
Yeah, a good way to understand kind of how this game operates is just picture a very rules light tabletop game the moment you're on your pilot, and then the moment the mech combat starts. It's honestly pretty similar to Kill Team.
Oh, okay, all right.
It's very war gamey the moment you start combat.
Let's be honest, that's a problem with most RPGs, isn't it? That the combat element seems almost completely separate from the role-playing element.
Yeah, I would have to say.
It's an intentional design decision on the Lancer team in particular. It's not something I fully agree with, their design choice, but I understand their logic. I don't agree, but I understand why. Yeah.
Let's move on to the final mech.
It's a dwarf. Well, isn't it?
Okay, so there's only two ways that this thing can work. Either this is the biggest cannon in all of existence, or this is some sort of hyperdrive.
Well, that's why I said it's a dwarf star cannon.
Oh, you said it's a dwarf.
It was leading into that. Ta-da! But yes, it is the biggest cannon I have ever seen for a head. How does it know where to move if the whole thing is just a cannon?
Well, probably because these things on the shoulder pads look like various cameras.
Ah, yeah, okay.
But when I take a look at it, obviously this is the main feature. So I think that it's got some sort of artillery element or controller element, like it's meant to teleports behind you, kid, haha. But more just, I can go really fast, or it's just kaboom.
I think it has to be a little bit of both, because looking at the way he's posed, it just looks like someone who's going spastic and ready to fight, high alert, and I can imagine this mech popping up here and there with a teleportation power, or even if it's not a teleportation power, it's very quick, very agile, and then once it gets an opening, boom, with the cannon.
Well, see, my thought is, it could either be the very fast speeds, but when I take a look at this, I more think of it like a literal monster, like Godzilla style. It goes, and then it starts running towards the guy after it's blasted, and they're like still recovering, and then he's like, karate chop.
Yes. That would be how I would also imagine this.
The design, the way that all of these pipes lead to this thing, it's got one key feature. I don't know whether it's the cannon or it goes really fast. But see the way that it's got that ring in there? Mm-hmm. Like, this screams, this is the thing. This is the thing that this does, right?
Yes, of course.
And then everything else says, I'm a functional mech.
Yeah.
You know, I can do other things. I've got hands. I could pick up guns or weapons or spears or something, right? But we've used this functional mech frame to put on dirty big cannon / hyperdrive thing here.
Yes.
And like, that's what it screams to me. Like, everything in this design, it says like, I've got some martial prowess, but pay attention to this.
Yes, it's a bit conflicting in its own design in that sense.
Yeah, but I think that's what it's meant to be saying. Like, we've got function. Let's just go to Design analysis.
Right off the bat, looking at the color scheme, we've got black, white, orange, and teal. With orange and teal, it's a great contrast.
Yeah, complementary
color scheme. But we also talked about how teal is also the color that's
connected with chaos.
Yes, because of the wild and writhing waves of the ocean.
Yes.
And with orange, it's a color that is very hyperactive.
Yes, it's got a lot of energy to it.
Yes. And we mentioned how we think that this could be a very quick and agile type of mech. And orange does have a little bit of that.
I'm not sure about quick and agile. I think functional. So like Glueboy was talking about how with this we see that they've got physical stat lines. I bet that this guy's physical stat line, whatever it is in the sort of A+ category, right?
Okay.
It's not bad physically. When it gets into combat, it's going to be pretty decent. It's not going to throw down like the first one that we saw, but if it's versing anything that isn't basically somebody who's designed for combat, it'll probably overpower them.
Yeah, okay.
Because the way that it's posed, right, shows that it's very articulate in its movements.
Yes,
right?
yes, I would agree with that.
But my guess is, for this, it's got one super special ability, and then it's more or less a normal mech.
Just put it on a body so that it can transport itself.
Yeah, it's like, this is your super special thing, and then everything else is, I'm a normal guy, my name's Dave.
Yes. I guess now would be time for...
Design versus lore.
Alright, Glueboy, hit us.
Alright, this mech is known as the Sunzi, or... particularly, this is named after a piece of writing that is based after the work of Sun Tzu, the creator of Art of War. Because every single mech from this specific line, this is the Harrison Armory line. A company that is best described, I personally call them War Crimes Incorporated. That's really all they do. They're the remnants of the fascist rulers of the government beforehand, and most of their mechs legally had to be changed because they were too awful and brutal.
Right.
Do you mean effective? Ha ha ha.
Yeah, depending on how you look at it. They had some mechs that preferred indiscriminate warfare, and they were told under no uncertain terms you had to change it.
I see.
Well, I'm pretty sure the mechs didn't like that.
Well, I don't think the mechs cared that much because they're inanimate objects, but
yes.
I feel like that the people who are selling the mechs probably cared a great deal.
Definitely.
So, how on point were we with the design aspect? I'm guessing it does have some super special ability?
Yes. One thing I want to point out before I go into the super special ability, I want to mention that you were very correct in the fact that that big head element is something that is essentially just slapped onto a normal mech.
Yeah.
Because that frame, that like the body, is actually from a different mech.
Yep.
I will put the image in now.
Okay,
but essentially, the arms and the head are slapped onto a mech known as the Napoleon.
Okay, no, so because when I took a look at it, right, it just looked way too functional. This one looks quite exotic compared to this guy. When I take a look at this guy, he seems even more functional than this thing right here, because I take a look at that, it's got doodads.
It's got a lot of triangular shapes, meaning that it's something that is unpredictable.
And very hostile.
Very hostile.
But the big thing is when I look at this guy, right, he just screams, I'm a guy, and you know, then head.
Got a head. You can ignore that, maybe.
Yeah.
Which, to clear that up, the big head is, that is a warp drive.
So we were right, because like, we thought, when I saw the blue ring around it, that was the sort of giveaway, but I thought either it's a stupidly big gun, or you move really fast. So it's move really fast, is it?
Kinda. So... It doesn't physically move fast. Okay, so I'm realizing too, I picked these mechs as a good way of also giving a pretty nice rundown on Lancer's core lore. So this mech basically does very, very short-term faster than light travel.
Okay.
It's all about teleportation.
Yes.
Because specifically... that engine head lets it operate blink space. In Lancer, the only way to do fast and light travel is go through blink space, which means you have to create, which is very hard unless it's very tiny or short term, or go through pre-existing blink space gates, which is essentially a separate dimension that is thankfully safe, except for the weird math that is a little eldritch and unknowable and has God in there. Just don't worry about it. It's less dangerous than the warp, like in 40k. You won't get killed by a demon, but you also can't perceive blink space, like, at all. Now, the Sunzi will straight up just rip a hole in space and then teleport behind you, or teleport other people unwillingly, or, particularly one of my favorites, attacks. A big scary cannon shot's coming its way. Well, let me just open a portal in front of me, and then where am I opening the other portal? Behind the guy who shot it.
Ah, okay. So it is the teleports behind you kid.
You were right.
Well, because
it is very much like that, or playing with portals. Like, it's just Portal 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So he is the ninja bot. So he teleports behind you and then karate chop. Bye-bye.
Well, can I ask, is its physical rating pretty decent?
It's mid-range. This is a mech that you could make very easily into a physical. I'm comparing, for example, I'm going to compare it to something like... the first one we talked about, the Vlad.
Yeah.
The Vlad, it's a little less tanky than the Vlad, like just a couple under. It's like one less health, one less armor than the Vlad. Compare that to the Hydra, and it's a little more on par physically.
Okay.
You can make a Sunzi a lot more physical because, like I said, these are all very mix and match. You can create them what you want. So if you really desire, you can make a teleport behind you, stab in the face. There are mechs that are also suited to do that. This could be a method of doing it if you want a little more tanky, because there are mechs that teleport behind you that are a lot more like rogue. I stab you in the neck and then I disappear.
Right.
Yeah. If I was to have this sort of mech, I'd have this as sort of an all-rounder mech, and like my idea behind it would be I'd be the kind of pilot who actually answers distress calls and can arrive on time, because like that's why he's got the dirty big head thing, so that he can actually use blink space to get wherever. I'm not sure whether that would work within the lore, but like that's what I'd do, you know, just he's got a gun, he's got a sword, and you know, he's just like, all right, I'm here and I've arrived on time. Oh yes, I guess we should do the redesign. I look at this guy and I don't want to. I like...
He's so cute.
He's so...
I do agree. I love the Sunzi a lot.
You know, honey, your answers are just so woman answers.
I am a woman.
Yes, Yes, thank you for that. But, like, you're just like, oh, she's such a lady, and, you know, this guy, oh, he's cute, he's got a big head. I like the big head.
You know, I always say big heads are good because you show up better in pictures.
She does say this. She says this to me.
I always see a child with a huge head, and I say, that's a good kid. Good kid.
She will touch my head and then say, you show up better in pictures. And what are you meant to say to that?
Well, it's true. I have meticulously analyzed this across the years with all the school photos that I have. And that guy's gonna show up well in pictures for sure. But you probably won't have enough time to take a snapshot of it because he'll blink space his way out of the picture. That's what I think. That's his whole deal.
This is what I deal with
Blinking
every
you
day.
miss it.
Yes. But yes, I love the color choice. I do love, for some reason, that giant cannon head just fits really well with the body. It doesn't feel too out of place.
Yeah, it's quite unusual that such an awkward and large object doesn't make it feel unbalanced.
Yeah, which is so odd. But that's why I kind of like it, because he's kind of such an interesting little guy. And I can just imagine him spazzing out on the battlefield like, boom, boom, boom. I'm here. Now I'm over here. I'm over here. I'm over here. You can't catch me. And then after that, boop, I do some avatar chakra points thing. And now you can't move. That's how I imagine using this mech.
All right. Well, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining us, Glueboy, and I hope that your audience enjoys our analysis.
Yes.
I hope so too. I adore any moment that I can talk about Lancer, and I like actually hearing people who know a lot more about art design than I do. I just know the lore. I look at these and my head just goes, big robot. And then that's the end.
But I do get why you like this game so much, because when we first discussed doing this topic about mechs, I immediately thought Battletech, and those mechs are a little bit harder to get a design sense for.
They're much more military
and mechanical, but these were almost humanoid, so it gives it a lot more character. Each one is completely unique, and it's so interesting to see. I got very excited when you showed us the pictures. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get a fun time.
Alright, but you know that there is one thing that would be able to help all of his audience.
What's that?
Keep those brushes wet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Glueboy, what's this? Look, I don't even want to look at it.
Honey, I feel some stabbing pain in my shoulder. What's happening?
That is what it does.
Causes
Don't look
me
directly
pain.
into the aperture.
Did you say aperture?
No, I said anima. Anima, the role-playing game.
Judas Sith? Did I read that right?